Now that we can identify populations and samples, let's now take a look at how we can summarize information about them using something called a parameter and a statistic. A parameter and a statistics, they're both numerical values, and sometimes you'll hear it called a numerical measure, and these help us describe these two groups, specifically the population and the sample. So a parameter is a numerical summary of a population. So it's some number that summarizes the population. And how I remembered this the first time that I was learning it is that the P for parameter pairs up with the population. So the parameter is a number that describes the population, and then the S's get matched up. A statistic is a numerical value that summarizes a sample. So statistic is paired up with sample. Let's look at example 3. In a study of 50 stores, the average number of weekly customers was 2,300. Is this value a parameter or a statistic? So looking at this store example, this is considered a statistic because it's a numerical summary that's the average of the weekly customers that's calculated based on a sample of 50 stores. It doesn't say that that 2,300 here is based on the entire population. The average was calculated on 50 stores, not all stores. So, because this represents a summary of the weekly customers for the sample of 50 stores, the answer here is going to be that this is a statistic. We're not looking at all stores. Remember that statistics always describes a sample, and the parameter describes the entire population. All right, now let's look at the next example, example 4. Notice I should have mentioned this before. Notice that in example 3, we're talking about an average. So that's the value that represented the sample. It's an average. There's different ways that you can summarize a group. We could have averages, and another way that you can summarize a group is using a percentage. That's another kind of value, and we use the word proportion a lot in statistics. So we're going to be talking about an example that represents a proportion. So in example 4, it says 85% of all registered voters in a city said they plan to vote. So this is 85% of all registered voters. This percentage or this proportion is based on all registered voters. Because that value summarizes the entire population, not a sample, the entire population, this would be considered a parameter. So this illustrates a key difference between parameters and statistics. So let me also mention here, when we talk about statistics, there are two definitions, right? We have statistics, the course, right? It's the subject that we study, but a statistic could also be a value that summarizes a group or a sample. So remember that statistics has two different definitions.